Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be ranking every single attacker's operator gadget in Rainbow Six Siege as of Year 9 Season 1. Now make sure you guys stick around to the end because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of placements you guys disagree with, so let me know down in the comments where you agree and disagree. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Starting off with Ace, arguably one of the strongest attackers when looking at an operator gadget point of view. He's a hard breacher, he can do it from a range and a safe position. It makes the medium-sized hole out of the 3 attackers, and overall I do think he is a great operator even when we ignore the loadout and stuff like that. Next up, we have Amaru, whose gadget is just like a grappling hook where she can go up through windows, up through hatches to catch people off guard. It can be great for rushing, especially on certain maps and using it as like a wildcard pick. But as for every single round, it's not really going to be great for running. It's more like a use it once in a game to kind of catch them off guard kind of deal. And when we ignore the rest of her loadout and stuff like that and compare them to some of the other gadgets that we're ranking in this video, it's not the best, but it's also not the worst. So I think B tier is an accurate placement. Next up, we have Ash, whose gadget is essentially just breaching charges that she can use from a distance and once again a safe place. I'm going to go A tier for this because it can be useful in most case scenarios. It also hard counters mirrors now as well, which is a great addition, but overall there are definitely more operators that are going to be more useful. For example, any hard breacher in the game is probably going to be an S tier just because of how crucial they are to the team, but overall I do think Ash is still an A tier gadget, so it deserves A tier. Moving on then, we now have Blackbeard, and if you guys know me and you know Blackbeard, you know he deserves D tier. Now he is arguably the worst attacker in the game right now. His gadget is essentially just a shield that only blocks 1 bullet to the head, and yes, that can be crucial for winning or losing a certain gunfight, but when you look at the other operator gadgets in the game, they can just offer so much more, and more times than not, the people you're going to be running up against in this game are going to have a fully automatic weapon, so even if they do block 1 bullet to the head, the next bullet is probably also going straight into your head and killing you anyway. Next up then, we have Blitz, arguably one of the most interesting attackers to rank in this video, specifically because of the shield rework changes, which allows any shield operator now to sprint with their shield up. Yes, you're no longer able to hit fire from behind the shield like you used to, but where you're playing Blitz, you can blind them and then ADS safely anyway. So I'm going to put him high end of B tier. He's arguably an A tier operator as well when we just focus on the gadget. Next up then, we have Brava, who basically just has a little drone that hacks other defender gadgets. Now overall, it's a great addition to the team. It probably deserves to be an A tier, but you got to keep in mind this is all down to who the defenders are actually running. If they're running Maestro, Capcan, anyone who's putting down bulletproof cameras and stuff like that, that is when you're going to be getting the most use out of this gadget. If they're only playing operators that are putting down like observation blockers, you know, Jaeger or Wamai discs and stuff like that, it's not really going to be useful for you because you're just going to hack that and then it's just going to get destroyed. So overall, you're probably better off running a Twitch or a Flores in that specific situation. So it all depends on who the defenders are running. Next up then, we have Buck. Now, if we're thinking about his gadget, it's essentially just a mini shotgun, but even when we compare it to other shotguns in the game, it's a semi-auto shotgun that does a lot of damage, does a lot of destruction as well, and even when we take out the bias of the weapon it's strapped to, being able to switch back and forth between that with a single press of a button is absolutely crucial. You can play vertically, you know, you got so much close range damage as well. I think this deserves an S tier because it can do so much within a round and you can completely manipulate the map to how you want to attack it. Either way, next up we now have Capital, a very niche one, I'm not gonna lie. I'm tempted to put him in B tier as well. Yes, he does have smokes and fire, so he does have like multiple use cases, but still I find it pretty niche where you can actually use this gadget to its full capability. I'd probably say that he's best for planting the bomb with his smokes and then protecting it once it's down with the fire. So he's useful for like a plant and post-plant situation, but other than that, you're not really going to be getting the most out of a Capital, so I'm going to put him probably high end of B tier. If you want to put him low end of A, I do understand as well, but probably high end of B tier for me personally. Next up then, we have Deimos, the newest attacker in Rainbow Six Siege. He's probably just going to go straight into A tier. I don't know why his icon's slightly bigger than the rest of them. That's going to really annoy me, but overall his gadget is pretty good. You basically can just scan someone with a melee helicopter and then put yourself in like a 1v1 situation. I do think that this gadget is best when you're playing with a coordinated team team, and you can just tell your teammates exactly where that opponent is so that they can go track them down and kill them, because you do have to remember when you scan someone with your gadget, they're going to know your exact location as well. Either way, moving on from Deimos over to Dokkaebi. Now, I think Dokkaebi is easily an S tier operator right now. Her gadget is extremely useful for locating, tracking down, and killing roamers, but at the same time, she calls everyone on defense, so you can get those audio cues from anyone on the map at any point in time, and it is extremely strong. Next up then, we have Finka. Now, Finka's an interesting one because it also kind of requires a little bit of a coordinated push, you know what I mean? You need to know when to use it at the right times. You can also use it to revive people from across the map, which is pretty goddamn useful. I think it probably deserves A tier. She is the only attacker right now who can actually heal you, so it is quite useful in that regard, and there's not really any other operator in the game like her right now. Next up then, we have Flores, and as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Brava, he can be quite useful. I don't know if he's quite as good as Brava actually, because yes, he's great for clearing that utility, but he's not actually able to hack it. So I think he's a B tier operator, and while I'm talking about him, Twitch also deserves B tier because they're very similar operators. Twitch is slightly worse in my opinion because you have to drive your drone in there and shoot it specifically, whereas Flores, it just destroys a massive area. But overall, I think these three like clearing operators are all great in their specific situations, but I don't think any of them can be any higher than an A tier, even when perfectly countering the defenders. Next up then, we have Fuse. Now, Fuse is very hit or miss. He can be once again quite good at clearing utility, kind of like a Flores, but he can also flush operators out of certain hidey holes and stuff like that. He's very similar to Flores in that regard, but instead of using a drone to do it from safety, you can just go there and do it yourself. When we're removing the bias of his loadout and stuff like that as well, I also think Fuse's gadget is probably a B tier. Probably deserves to be low end of B tier as well. Arguably just as useful as the Amaru gadget. Next up then, we have Glaz. All his gadget is a thermal scope. So yes, it can be useful when paired with smoke grenades and stuff like that, but overall, there are so many better operators to be bringing. I'm just going to put him in C tier because he's definitely better than Blackbeard, but other than the fact that he can just see through smokes, it's not really that useful of a gadget. He kind of just relies on his DMR, and I guess that's his gadget, but when you think of it like that, it's just not that great really, is it? Next up then, we have Gridlock, very similar to Capital in my opinion. They're both great post-plant, but other than that, it's basically just the attacker's version of barbed wire, but it does damage as well. It can be good against like Clash and stuff like that, but overall, I don't think Gridlock's going to be that great overall. Next up then, we have Grim, who has been getting buffs since his initial release. I do think his gadget is probably A tier, especially when used in its perfect situation. Overall, I think Grim can be such a great operator, can give you and your team great intel and give you a live ping of where that opponent is. When compared to the other operators in this tier and other tiers in general, I do think he does belong in A tier, so overall that is where I'm going to leave it. Next up then, we have Hibana, and as I said earlier, I think all of the hard breaches are going to go into S tier. It's all just down to preference. Ace is probably the most overall well-rounded hard breacher. Hibana is going to be the best for getting hatches, and Thermite is going to be best for just opening a big hole. So if you're playing on maps like Consulate or Chalet, where you have that double wall reinforcement going straight to outside, you're probably going to want to make a bigger hole. Whereas if you're playing on maps like Bank, there's a lot more hatches to be getting when they're playing in basement, so Hibana's probably better. And then if you're playing on any normal objective, Ace is probably the best because you can do a medium-sized hole from a safe range. Either way, let me know where you would rank all of the hard breaches. Moving on now to Iana, I'm going to go into S tier because Iana is essentially just an unlimited amount of intel, basically an unlimited number of drones, and if you can drone and use her clones properly, then what it's going to allow you to do is find the people before you engage in a gunfight, giving you the 1-up. Next up then, we have IQ, who can detect any electrified gadget. I do think she's probably B tier, maybe A tier, because you have to actually put yourself in that situation yourself, and you can only have a pistol out while using the gadget. With that being said, let's do a few rapid fire ones. So Jackal is great for, you know, finding, locating, and taking out roamers, but he's banned most of the time. I think overall, actually, his gadget's probably S tier. That's probably why he's banned so often. Callie, I mean, she can do a great double as Thatcher if Thatcher is banned, but the fact she only has the sniper, but we're ignoring that, so I'm going to go into B tier. I think her sniper and the gadget she has attached to it, which doubles as a Thatcher gadget, can be extremely useful to the team. So I'm going to go like B tier. Next up we have Lion, who's another great operator, probably deserves to be right next to Thinker. They do similar roles where you got to use it at the perfect time, but when used correctly it can be great, and ignoring the rest of his loadout, he probably deserves to be up there anyway. Maverick can just kind of make small holes, probably deserves A tier as well. Montaigne probably deserves A tier because he can sprint now with his shield up, and then he can still fully extend his shield and be completely protected. Nook probably deserves C tier because she doesn't even get fully hidden on cameras anymore. She's kind of just extremely focused on fragging. So when we're ranking the gadget itself, it deserves to be extremely low. Nomad, probably B tier. It would be higher if it was quieter, but overall Solo Cute can be quite good, but more likely than not the defenders are going to hear it and probably just not push you and wait for you to swing them. Osa is a very interesting one because everyone knows how to counter Osa. If you come up against an Osa who's put her shield down, throw an impact or a C4 at her and she will scramble and you will just easily get a free kill. Ram can be great for vertical play, very similar to like a Buck or an Ash, but overall more heavily focused on that vertical play. Senz's gadget is kind of just like a glorified smoke grenade, so I kind of want to put that in C tier as well. Whenever I seem to use this thing, it also just bounces off walls that I didn't expect it to, so I don't know, maybe it deserves like another trajectory trail of where the entire thing is going to go. And then with our final 5 attackers for this list, Sledge is kind of similar to Ash, but you have to put yourself in a dangerous position to use it. With that being said, playing vertically, you're probably going to be more safer and further away from the objective when you're using this gadget. Thatcher, easily S tier, counters almost every defender gadget in the game and can be crucial for opening up walls. Ying probably deserves S tier as well because if you blind someone with this thing, it's free kills, so it's pretty good. Sam Fisher is essentially just Valkyrie kind of, but on attack. Not as useful because once you've put those cameras down, you can't really pick them back up again or move them, and on attack you're going to be moving throughout the map. But if you can put them down in like a post plant situation, it's probably like an A tier, but I'm going to go high end of B tier. And then finally we have Zofia, which is kind of similar to Ash in terms of her gadget, but also has the added bonus, so I don't see why it doesn't deserve A tier as well. With that being said, that has been my full gadget operator tier list. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you in the next one.